host, Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Oh, why don't you be serious? You're not the host, Brain.
Well, I should be.
Chris DiFrancesco is the host.
Chris DiFrancesco?
Yes, that's correct. I didn't stutter.
Didn't he get whacked in an episode of The Sopranos?
Oh, give me a break. He hosts a podcast, Brain.
Who the hell doesn't?
Well, his is about wrestling.
Who the hell's isn't?
He talks about old wrestling.
Wow, what a novel idea.
Oh, give me a break.
Next you're going to tell me he's got a wrestling-themed name for the show?
Well,
Come on, Monsoon, spit it out.
it's the Hot Tag Wrestling Podcast,
So what?
and it's starting now.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Hot Tag Wrestling Show. I'm Chris DiFrancesco. That is my Grandmaster Sexay to my Scotty 2 Hottie. He is Shills Shillington himself, Johnny B. Blood, but his name is George Rogers. He's here with me, as always, my friends. George, what's going on, man? How are you?
I cannot believe you just called me Grandmaster Sexay. I will leave right now.
Well, the reason I did that was mainly because literally about 20 minutes before we hopped on here, you sent me a text regarding Grandmaster Sexay. So I said, "Oh, you're gonna like this one, George. Especially George will like this." I was standing in the shower after reading your text, and I said, "Man, I think I'm going to start the show off our very first live stream of the Hot Tag Wrestling Podcast." Here, you can find us on YouTube, on my Facebook page, or on my Twitter page. My Twitter handle is right there. You can see it. I can't point to the screen here, but you could see it somewhere down there. And I'm thinking, man, he's my Grandmaster Sexay to my Scotty 2 Hottie. And I had to do it. So I got out of the shower. You're lucky I put clothes on for this. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And I had to do the Shillington because that's just a running joke.
That's who I am. I'm Shill Shillington.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But while we're here, let's give everybody a chance now to listen to us reintroduce ourselves. My name is Hove, H to the O-V. I'm sorry, that's Jason.
That is not you.
That's not me. My name is Chris DiFrancesco. We've been doing this show, I think, technically speaking, this is episode like 117 of the Hot Tag Podcast. Since we're here streaming, it is the Hot Tag Show. I won't tell you podcast because we're live. We're streaming here for you guys. I've been a professional wrestling fanatic fan since 1990. So if that doesn't tell you all partially maybe how old I might be, if you listen long enough, I'm sure you'll figure out more nostalgia that I'll bring up that makes us feel or sound however you believe we are. Let's see here. This is my passion, man. A lot of you who might be watching have probably, saw me or heard myself anyway, on the other podcast that I run on my other stream channel, the Ring the Bell podcast. We talk about Philadelphia Phillies baseball. As much as I love baseball, as much as I love sports, pro wrestling has always been my thing. Pro wrestling has, I've always said this, as big of a letdown and as frustrating as pro sports has been in my life, pro wrestling was always there. You're going through the times of puberty. Like I'm 13 years old in 1999. WWE's there to teach me all about puppies and teach me all about chopping off one's wee-wee. So it's, so many critical moments, that I can revert back to where wrestling was just such an integral part of my life. My entire wedding, was, everybody that was in my wedding party had an entrance theme from WWE. My wife and I came out separately in the reception. I came out to a mix that I had created having to do with Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. My wife ordered a custom made robe and came out to the Bobby Roode Glorious theme. So that is, how huge wrestling has been in my life. That's just a small sample. This is a podcast that I started a long time ago, a few start and stops, but this is something I've really wanted to get to for a long time, which was to stream this show. I've had quite a few people reach out to me on our Facebook page at the Hot Tag Podcast, saying, "Hey, when are you going to take this thing? When are you going to stream? When are you going to go live?" I'm like, you know what? I wanted to do it in January. I know George and I talked about it on last week's, I think it was the Survivor Series 96 episode, where I mentioned maybe we'll do this in the new year. I was like, screw it. Why wait? Just get it started now. during Survivor Series season, and then be able to really catch fire. I hope during the Royal Rumble time of the year, and then leading into WrestleMania. So George, how about you? Let's introduce yourself and take it away.
I am George Rogers, despite my title being Johnny B. Blood. That is there was a running joke for the longest time when we weren't streaming this live that every time Chris and I would do an episode, as to kind of poke fun at John Morrison, who every time he goes to a different company, he changes his name to whatever company he goes to. I just started naming myself Johnny and then whatever pay-per-view we were doing. So if it was
right,
so like for when we did WCW's World War III, I changed my name to Johnny War the Third.
Yeah, which is the best one.
Yeah. And then when we did Bad Blood 97, I thought this will be great because Chris is the biggest Johnny B. Bad fan since Mark Marrow. That I'm going to change my name to Johnny B. Blood, and now I'm just keeping it because it's too good. But just like Chris, I'm a lifelong wrestling fan. I don't remember a time when I wasn't watching it. I still watch it today. I mean, I know the product ain't what it used to be, but nothing is ever what it used to be, and I'm aware of this.
Yeah,
wrestling is the only current thing that I actually keep up with. Well, I guess movies too, but I stopped listening to new music. I've stopped listening to music since Creed's Weathered came out, so there's nothing worth listening to.
Which is fair. That's fair. I give you that.
I mean, once you've gone to the top of the mountain, there's nowhere to go from there. You only go
once
down,
you've reached that top of the mountain with Weathered by Creed. Anything after that is a complete downfall.
Yeah. I mean, and I did watch both. I did watch WCW and I did watch WWF/E. I used to watch WCW with my grandfather a lot. That was one of the things that we always liked to do together. He always had interesting commentary on the older wrestlers because he watched the stuff, well, not growing up, but he watched the stuff, from like the 70s and 80s. And he always had some, let's just say, not PC things he would say about some of the wrestlers that I cannot repeat here since we are now live.
I understand.
It's, wrestling has always been there. I mean, we got to see, I got to live through, the highest points of it, with the Monday Night Wars and into the 2000s where, the viewership has declined a little bit, but it looks like we're getting a bit of a resurgence, not as much as what we got, in the 90s. But there's, WWE is bigger now than they've ever been.
Yep.
AEW, for all its faults, is a number 2 brand. TNA, hey, if you can find them, they're on TV. And NWA is probably going to get another TV deal somewhat soon. So we're going to have some major companies actually getting on TV. So it's I don't want to say it's an exciting time, but it's an interesting time.
It's a time.
It's a time.
It's a time. Correct. And look, we're going to talk about current stuff, which is something that we just started doing last week. And then we're going to get into every week. There's going to be a different show we're going to cover. When we don't do shows, we'll do top 10 lists. We could do, fantasy booking type stuff. I know there's something that I just sent to our group where it says, create a faction with one wrestler from the golden era, attitude era, ruthless aggression, and the current. So that's for another show. And I think that's going to be a great one. But yeah, man, before we get into it, wrestling is just so vital. It's a global entity. And, it used to be a time, in those mid 90s where if you were a wrestling fan, you kind of hid it a little bit. It wasn't something that was, cool. And then we got into that, when the NWO really kicked in, that's when wrestling started becoming cool. You got to give credit where credit's due. Before Stone Cold Steve Austin, there was the NWO. The NWO really started getting pro wrestling, George, into that more adult-oriented content before we got to the Stone Cold Steve Austins and we got to the product that the WWF became in that late 90s, where it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, man. And we'll cover some of that today when we cover Survivor Series 99, where a dude got ran over by a car. So we're gonna, we're gonna dive into that stuff. And like, look, every time I do anything live for the first time, I always give credit to my Aunt Nancy. She's still a diehard pro wrestling fan, watches every show every week. Without her, I wouldn't be a wrestling fan. In 1990, she was a it still is, a mega Bret the Hitman Hart fan. And to go against my aunt, I'm like, you know what? Not going to be a Bret fan. I all of a sudden found the Rockers, and Shawn Michaels changed my life forever and in many, many ways. And so she loved Bret Hart. Her and I have been in an ongoing feud for 30 years. So over Bret and Shawn. But I thank her for getting me into pro wrestling, and my parents hate her for it. But nonetheless, pro wrestling stopped me from probably doing a lot of other troublesome debaucheries along the way, because it's just really all I cared about for so long. And now we're here. So let's dive in to our very first topic, George. Let's talk about Crown Jewel. Just happened this past Saturday. It's starting to become, like WrestleMania 2, like it's becoming like the baby brother of WrestleMania. Like WWE really focuses on booking these shows hard. Like they really do their best to get main event style things there. And obviously it has to do with the amount of money that Saudi pays WWE per show, which is in excess of $50 million. That's 50. And I think this show this past week was I thought it was really good. My favorite match of the night was Seth versus Drew. I know people really didn't like the idea that Drew didn't come out the winner. My point is, Seth is not going to lose the title before Survivor Series at Crown Jewel. It's just not going to happen. I see Seth losing that title at WrestleMania, if anything. I can see this year's WrestleMania being where both world champions lose their titles. Well, we know what's happening with Roman Reigns, but we'll talk about that down the road. Other than that, man, Logan Paul and Rey Mysterio tore it up. Logan Paul continues to just show that this dude just flat out belongs in the business. It's not one of those guys where I'm going to sit here and be like, he's got to continue to pay his dues, blah, blah, blah. No, Logan Paul can flat out go in the ring. George, what was your thoughts on Crown Jewel, and what were some of your highlights?
Crown Jewel's always, it's always a big show. I always try to catch it when I can. I was able to catch a good amount of it. Plus I went back and rewatched after I got home. Logan Paul and Mysterio was just, it was my match of the night. Unbelievable. As I said to you in text, Logan Paul is just a specimen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's almost just it's like he's a natural in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's funny because when we look at him, he's a YouTube sensation just like us.
Yeah.
Now. And
that's correct.
Yeah. And you don't think anything of him, but then when you see him in the ring, you're like, oh, all right. Like, he's learned a couple of things, but then after each match, he gets a little better and a little better as it goes on. He saw that Rey Mysterio was going to short that moonsault and slid in for the catch almost on instinct. Like, that is just wild to me. It's like, anybody else, may have seen that coming. I know in the other company, they would just let him land on his head and then continue the match.
Oh, if that was an AEW show, that, Ray's dead.
Yeah.
Dead. And I'm not trying to make a joke out of it, but it's just the way it is. The fact, and you could tell Logan Paul is trained by guys like Shawn Michaels, and, go in there. Shawn protected everybody. Shawn was one of the best sellers, and if not the best seller in the history of the game. And part of that is to protect the other guy. That's what a lot of, heels and guys that can sell do. And for Logan Paul in his 5th or 6th career match, to know right then and there, oh, damn, he's going to be short. Let's, no pun intended, Ray's going to come up pretty short here. I got to go save his life. That's an athlete. He's a dude with the instincts of an athlete. And he he was great, man. That was unreal what he did for Ray, and I'm sure that gave him a lot of brownie points, as it were, for lack of a better term, moving forward.
And a rare for Ray to short a move like that. Usually he's pretty
Yeah.
pinpoint. So I mean,
Mhm.
that's a rare thing from to the point where it makes you wonder. It's like maybe they planned this spot, but you don't want to think about that.
That's a hard spot to play.
You're in the moment and you're just kind of thinking about
Right.
it. Io Sky and Bianca,
Yeah.
another solid. Plus the return of Kyrie Sane that nobody
Yes.
saw coming. At least nobody saw coming in Crown Jewel.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it was.
Um,
She was listed on internal rosters, and nobody knew when she was going to show up. I guess smart money probably would have been the Royal Rumble if you're
Yeah.
going to put it. If you're going to like at the very least to take a guess. But
mhm.
I mean, she showed up here. The crowd knew who she was, and the crowd. I mean, this Saudi crowd is hot.
It is.
They're
Mhm.
they're just like a Chicago crowd or a Philly crowd. Like
Yeah.
they're there for it. They're there for everything. They'll let you know that they're
Mhm.
there.
I know, I agree. Um, so yeah, and then you look down by the way, I just want to say this. I'm going to say this a lot when we talk about current stuff. I know people love Charlotte Flair and when Sasha was in her prime. I think Bianca Belair is the greatest women's wrestler I've ever seen. She is untouchable to me. I just think everything she does is so crisp. She's so strong. And, I feel like her gimmick is not a gimmick. Like she is everything that she says she is. Um, I think she's spectacular. Anytime she's in a wrestling match, I'm gonna be there. And that's not normal. I'm not trying to be sexist or anything like that or misogynist. I'm not a fan of women's wrestling. I'm just not. Nothing against them. It's just the way it is. There's some matches that I love. Going back to NXT in Brooklyn with Bailey and Sasha, which I think to this day is still the greatest women's wrestling match of all time. But I'm just not a big fan of it. However, when Bianca Belair is in a match, I'm gonna watch. What are your thoughts on Belair?
I mean, I liked her as soon as she debuted.
Yeah.
I think she was in that Mae Young tournament.
Mhm.
I think one of them she was in that, and I was a fan of her then. I was like, she's gonna be something. And when she
Yeah.
got signed to NXT, I was watching a little bit. I was like, yeah, she's definitely on her way. I
Mhm.
mean, and ever since she's been on the main roster, she's basically owned that division. Like
Mhm.
that's like not just SmackDown or just Raw. She owns the entire women's division. She's the face of that division. I don't care.
I
What anybody
agree.
I don't care how long Becky can hold that belt, defend it all you want, blah 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 blah. And no. It ain't you. It hasn't
I
been me.
agree. I
It's
agree.
it's all about it's all about Bianca. However, I do think just to freshen her up, she might need a bit of a heel turn.
I agree. I think she would be really good at it. So I think that's
Stick her in that faction with Lashley and the Street Profits now,
yeah.
and just let it roll, dude.
Yeah, that's money, man. I agree. Roman Reigns, not surprising. Don't know why a lot of people thought otherwise on this. Roman
Why would
Reigns
anybody
defeat.
think otherwise?
I don't know. Defeats LA Knight to retain the WWE Undisputed Championship. It was a good match. I know George and I differ on our thoughts on where they are with Roman Reigns right now. It's not something really to debate because I can't control it, and we all know that there is an end date, and it's going to be in April in Philadelphia at WrestleMania 40. But so we know from what we assume that LA Knight's not winning the Royal Rumble, and LA Knight's not going to be beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Only one man is beating Roman Reigns, and his last name is Rhodes. So,
Dustin?
and it's not Dustin. Are you kind of upset that this, with how hot LA Knight has been? I mean, he's been one of the hottest guys in the world. Are you kind of upset that they bring him into a big event here and, you knew he was just going to lose? Do you think that hurts him at all moving forward?
Not at all. Dude's got a strong
No.
fan base. He's one of the top merch sellers in the company.
Mhm.
I don't think it hurts his stock. At least not as much as people are like, oh, he's buried, he's done now. It's like, that's what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I think for Logan Paul, or not Logan Paul, LA Knight, I think LA Knight's next program should be against Logan Paul for the US title. I mean, it's clear it's clear Logan Paul's not a full-time guy. He's not going to be on every show, which means SmackDown now has no champions.
Yeah, it's so good.
There's that. Except for the tag titles. So I guess Finn Balor and Damian Priest or no, the women's championship.
Yep, Rhea.
Yeah. But I think he's hot. You put him against Logan Paul at one of the nights of WrestleMania and let him tear the house down. And then have him pull the title off of Logan Paul. That Philly crowd, him win the title, I don't need to tell you what it's going to sound like. You know.
Oh, I know. We're going to be there, George. We're going to be there. We're going to be holding hands, and we're going to be yelling, yeah, the entire time.
Yeah. We do. It's weird because we do that even when we're not at wrestling.
I know. I know. So, and of course, like I said, my favorite match tonight was Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins. You know, Seth continues to just tear it up. I still think, as of right now, I think he's the best professional wrestler in the world today. The dude he's every night, wrestles 15, 18-minute banger against Drew McIntyre in Saudi on Saturday, and has another banger on Monday night against Sami Zayn on Raw. And man, I hope he doesn't get burnt out, but I'm sure once Mania comes around, he's probably gonna take a nice little break. But yeah, it was a really good show. I thought Crown Jewel was a really good show. We also found out that I'm sure it'll be announced eventually soon that Drew McIntyre did sign a new contract, which is crazy because I thought every AEW fan, I mean, I don't want to call them fans. There's other things I'd like to call them, but I'm going to be nice. But AEW fans told me that he was going to, debut on some random Rampage or something and go up against a hack Adam Copeland or something like that. But
this is what I was told, was that he was going to show up on a random Dynamite. This is going to be 3 weeks after Tony Khan does another huge announcement.
And then job out to Moxley.
Yeah, and then he was going to show up, and then he was going to wrestle a 20-minute spot fest with Orange Cassidy and lose clean in the middle of the ring.
Oh man!
And then he'll disappear from TV for 4 weeks, and we'll forget about him. Like, hey, what happened to Drew Galloway? Because he's not going to use McIntyre.
Right. But no, I'm happy that Drew is going to be back. I'm sure for at least 3 to 5 years, which is the contracts that a lot of them do sign with the WWE. So let's kind of move on real quick before we get to our main topic tonight, which is Survivor Series from 1999. Raw after Crown Jewel. Raw was a good show, I thought. Again, you'll hear us talk about often that third hour, 3 hours is just a killer for Monday Night Raw. I think their ratings would be significantly better if they were 8 to 10 or maybe 9 to 11. But that's going to be in their next television deal. Raw doesn't have a home yet. As of right now, NXT has a television rights deal before Monday Night Raw. Think about that for a second. Because today, as we are broadcasting this live on Tuesday night, it was announced by WWE that beginning October of next year, the exclusive television rights of NXT will be on the CW network. And George, you were pretty happy with that. I was very happy about that. They're going to get a pretty good audience on a broadcast network over at CW, no?
They'll get a sizable crowd. They will definitely get an audience. The CW needs content. Because a lot of their big shows have ended or have been canceled. So this will be an exciting thing for them to be on broadcast. Plus, I mean, NXT is still a developmental brand, technically. So there'll be a lot of new faces coming through to that a lot of people are going to get to witness. So
I will say I'm pretty sure one can never really guess, but I'm I'm pretty sure the CW is happy that James Mitchell did coke on the air, because now they were able to lock in NXT and be a partner with WWE, which, by the way, it's not a new thing. SmackDown used to be on UPN back in the day, right?
Mhm.
That was the old CW network, correct? So,
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
or for us in the East Coast, in the tri-state area, Channel 17. For
Or
me
if you
anyway.
or if you didn't have cable, it used to be Philly 57.
Philly 57, that's correct.
If you remember that one. But
Just-
hey, I
See,
mean,
remember when I told you guys you'll find out our age? There's another reference.
there it is. There it is. Old. I'm old.
Yeah,
everybody.
Philly 57.
But yeah,
So-
and for what I'm hearing here, Billy Corgan's pretty is pretty upset about it. But hey,
Yeah.
despite all his rage, he's still just a rat in a cage, so he's got nothing to worry about.
That's a really good. I don't have a comeback to the Smashing Pumpkins reference. If that was Creed, we could have went for the next 10 minutes. But
Yeah, well,
Smashing Pumpkins.
it's because you're a zero, Chris.
Listen, I'm in my own prison sometimes. So
Not doing this again.
we're not doing.
At least not this quick.
Not this quick. We're not doing
It'll
it.
come. It'll come.
It'll get there. So yeah, I think the main event was spectacular. I mean, I texted you guys, the fire emoji, and I don't send that text often about a Monday Night Raw or anything like that. And I thought Seth and Sami Zayn tore it up. Sami Zayn is so damn good and so damn underrated in the ring. And that crowd was so hot for them for that match, man. And Seth got the win, a clean 1, 2, 3 in the middle. And then we had a 3-6 brawl breaking out with the Judgment Day coming down to the ring to beat up on everyone, especially mostly Sami Zayn, which led to Rollins doing a what's the movie does through the ropes? What's it called again? A
suicide dive or a tope suicide.
That's it. A tope suicide.
Tope suicide.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. The tope.
I miss Come back.
Yeah, and then that led to Jey Uso. I forgot for a little bit how big this dude is now.
I told you Jey Uso was hot.
Dude,
when you were in your wrestling sucks. When you were in your I hate everything wrestling phase, I'm like, hey, Jey Uso's pretty hot. You're like, yeah, whatever.
He's just let you know.
He's just Samoan Marty Jannetty. I don't care.
I don't think I said anything like that, but I'm sure
I made it up.
Yeah, I think you made that up, but I'm pretty sure I probably replied with something of like, "Who cares?" Big deal. Which
I think you put the meme of the dismissive wanking gesture.
I probably did, yeah. But Raw was great, which led, Cody Rhodes came out, and then we had Adam Pearce do a pretty good rendition of War Games. I mean, he sounded really good. He looked the part. As of right now, it's 4-on-4, which is Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, and Jey Uso versus Judgment Day. Obviously, it's going to be a 5-on-5. I have my theories. I think it's going to be either. So I think it's going to be Randy Orton. I say that because it'll fit the story of Cody Rhodes coming out and saying, we need a 5, and I'm going to go call a friend for help. And it's, a callback to Legacy. Why not? If Orton is, in fact, ready to come back, what better than to bring him back at Survivor Series for War Games and join that team? Obviously the whole CM Punk, I'm not going to dive into any CM Punk rumors because they are all over the place right now. I'm just going to sit in my living room with George. And yeah, I'm going to sit in my living room with George, Dean, and whoever else is going to show up at my house that night. And if he shows up, he shows up. If he doesn't, I don't care. It is what it is to me. I would like to be at a point in my life where there are still surprises. So I'm going to be done paying attention to that whole CM Punk thing. I'm excited for Survivor Series meaning something again. And that's a pay-per-view that I felt like just kind of fell off the rails as a big four for a while. And I'm happy to see, this War Games match George, that they have, even right now, set up at 4-on-4. Dude, that's going to be a banger, that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can only assume that the fit that Judgment Day is going to bring will be Drew McIntyre, which just makes them just nasty.
Oh, yeah, it makes it even better. They got so much talent right now.
But like regarding the CM Punk rumors, that they're all over the place. They're intentionally all over the place.
Intentionally. Even Punk is fueling them.
Yeah, I mean, if it's one thing CM Punk loves to do, it's to troll the IWC. God, he loves it almost as much as Triple H and Shawn like trolling Meltzer. Like,
yeah, I know.
Like nobody has anything concrete, and it's beautiful. Like
Right.
I love it. It's like either he shows up or he doesn't. But is this going to be one of those instances where Punk doesn't show up and then all of a sudden this is the worst pay-per-view since December to Dismember? Oh, this sucks because CM Punk didn't show up. It's like, well, nothing was ever concrete.
Right.
Like, only in your mind did you think he was going to show up, because are there little clues? Of course there's clues. Are there bigger clues? I guess if you go deep enough and you stretch something, maybe. Is it possible Punk is going to be the rumored opponent for Nakamura? Maybe. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
You are correct.
Oh no. I'd have to tune in to find out. It's almost like I was watching TV in the 90s. I have to wait till the next week.
I know, which was the glory days, my friend. All right, so let's get to why we are here, and that is Survivor Series from way back in 1999. This was George's pick. George picked last week Survivor Series 1996, and this week's show, Survivor Series 1999. The next two are my choices, which will be Survivor Series 2007 and Survivor Series 2009. And then we're going to go into some Armageddon pay-per-views, which is I'm really excited to revisit. I've been watching quite a few of them the past few nights, and they're actually some really good shows in there, and I'm excited to cover them. So, George, I'm going to do a gimmick infringement here with you that you do on your other podcast, the Multiverse Movie Podcast. Did you watch this live? Where were you?
Dean, are you hearing this? Are you hearing this?
Yeah.
He's legitimately stealing from us right now.
No, I'm sure he's doing something else
he's
at the time.
He's not watching. He's
no.
playing. He's watching.
He's actually physically doing the submissive wanking.
He's watching shaving videos, which is fine because they're relaxing. But I did not want. I did watch this live, but it was through the squiggly lines on the pay-per-view channel.
Dear gosh. So to take everybody back.
So I listened to it live.
That's good. And thank God you had, Jerry the King Lawler and, JR back then who, over produced their broadcasting back then, which was great. In 1999, at this time of this pay-per-view, I was about to turn 13. So I didn't have money to buy my own pay-per-view. So I had to ask my dad. I think I definitely purchased this pay-per-view because I was allowed at the time in 1999 or, even years prior, I was always allowed to purchase the big four, which was Rumble, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, and WrestleMania. So, of course, any chance I had to order a pay-per-view, it was this one. And, I did. So here we go. Let's talk about it. The date of this show is November 14th, 1999, which is a week from today, basically, right? So from the anniversary. From a pay-per-view buy standpoint, it did very well. I mean, very well. The month prior at No Mercy 1999 did 298,000 pay-per-view buys. Survivor Series the next month jumped to 406,000 pay-per-view buys. So again, of this era, the big four were the ones that had the most, pay-per-view buys. SummerSlam did 600,000. Survivor Series 406, or the Rumble did about 600,000, and WrestleMania did 825. So it was a big deal. Then once you got to the year 2000, the pay-per-view buys just kind of skyrocketed at that point. So again, a very popular pay-per-view here. There was a lot going on, like a lot. If you kind of look back, this was the 13th Survivor Series, and it did take place at a time when the WWF, they were thriving, dude. Like they were beating the brakes off of WCW. And I think it's safe to say, George, by this time, by November of 99, the Monday Night Wars were done. Like it was over. It was
there was no war by this
yeah,
point.
there was nothing here. Steve Austin was just, I mean, he as over as he was in 97, 98, man, 1999 Austin, before he went out here, of course, he was just, I mean, he was everywhere. Anytime you went to a 7-Eleven, anytime you went to a ShopRite, for those around me, whether you live near a Giant or an Acme or anything, he was on TV guides, or he was on magazines.
Or he was on Nash Bridges.
Or what a show that was. You got to bring that back.
It did. There was like a movie on Peacock. It was like a continuation.
But it wasn't starring Stone Cold Steve Austin.
No, it was not. And his name was Jake Cage, I'll have you know. And
by
the way, I pulled that from memory. I didn't even look that up.
That's good stuff, man.
You're welcome.
Good shit, pal. And but you also at this time, and we saw it, in this pay-per-view, The Rock was massive. Triple H was really like a household name by this point as well. And of course, there's always the constant. You had The Undertaker at this time. Mankind was big as well.
Mick Foley just wrote his book in 99.
Exactly.
His book was soaring up the charts.
Absolutely. So, to go into this show with a main event scheduled of Rock, Austin, and Triple H for the first time ever on a pay-per-view, you're thinking in your head, like, dear God, this is going to be a match that we're going to talk about forever. And going into the show, of course, anyone who was watching it live, you did not expect at the end of the night that, oh shit, we're going to be without Stone Cold for about a year. It's like, at the end of the show, I'm thinking to myself, my God, my life is ruined. I lost Shawn Michaels in March of 98, and now I just lost Austin in November of 99. I'm like, oh God, anybody I like gets injured for a long period of time. Like, why couldn't I have enjoyed Mick Foley? Like, have him.
I mean, and Taker was out too.
And yeah, see, it's a nightmare. There was backstage news surrounding this pay-per-view at the time because WWF was going through a big transition behind the scenes. And Vince Russo, the man who created everything in the Attitude Era, bro, and Ed Ferrara were the head writers under Vince McMahon for quite a few years before this. They jumped to WCW in October of 99 overnight. This was also around the same time when Brian Gewirtz, who went on to be probably one of the greatest writers of all time for the WWF and WWE, he's still with The Rock. I mean, he still works for $7 Production to this day. He joined the writing team at this point. So, you have the exit of the Russo-Ferrara era, which we know as, back then, Russo says it in his book, it was crash television. it was Howard Stern on television. Just short matches, just wild, like soap opera like vignettes and promos. That era did continue a bit through the end of 1999 and a little bit into 2000, but you could tell, George, that once Russo and Ferrara were out, Brian Gewirtz comes in, but probably by early to mid 2000, you could tell the WWF was really starting to focus on their in-ring action and the talent of their performers, where it was all about what's the story before the match. Whereas this is, yep, we have the story, but it ends once you get in that 20 by 20 squared circle. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Match quality definitely went up after Russo and the walking human pile of trash Ed Ferrara left.
George is not the biggest fan of Ed Ferrara.
I don't. It's anybody who was watching wrestling around this time. If you watch both shows, will know exactly why I hate somebody like Ed Ferrara. It's mainly because I didn't like his. I mean, mainly. I mean, it's only because I didn't like his Oklahoma character in WCW because it was clearly a JR ripoff, which is one thing to have a character and like do an homage, but you literally mocked like his palsy. It's like you're just a piece of trash. I mean, I'm not the only person that thinks that way. I mean, majority of people just hate that man.
I will second that. Yes. Also, this is worth mentioning that the WWF was so hot at this time. I mean, they were just selling out every house show, everything they did, anything WWF touched in '99 was just an absolute money making machine. So much so that SmackDown debuted in August of 1999. So that's even more content now for WWE fans to watch on TV. You know, it's with the way business was at that time, George, it was kind of, now looking back, it was such an easy decision for the WWF to create SmackDown.
Yeah.
To just give you more that's another night to see Steve Austin. That's another night to see The Rock. I mean, it's called SmackDown even to this day, you know, based on the character they created in The Rock. So it was a great time to be a pro wrestling fan in this era. So yeah, let's go ahead.
I mean, that's when SmackDown became a weekly show, was in August.
Yeah.
But they did that special back in April.
Right.
That was kind of like a dry run to see if they could do like a second show, because that was the show that I think the corporate ministry formed.
Mm-hmm. I believe you are correct.
If I'm remembering 1999 correctly, and
yeah, I think you are.
I like to think I am, because I'm pretty much stuck between the years of 1990 and 1999. So.
Oh, okay. I understand. So here we go. I get it. Here we are. Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Michigan, November 14th, 1999. The show gets started with a video package setting up the main event of Survivor Series with Triple H defending his world title against The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Vince McMahon, who was more of a babyface by this juncture, was announced as a special guest referee. So that's kind of odd. I completely forgot when I was revisiting this pay-per-view that, oh, holy cow, Vince is a babyface right now. So just did not remember that at all.
Heel Triple H was so good at being a heel that Vince had to turn face.
Yeah. Heel H was just out of this world, just spectacular. And, you know, this was part of why this era of Triple H is also why I will gladly put him on the tippy top of the pedestal as I think as the best heel of all time, with all things considered. We get to the first match here, Survivor Series elimination match, standard stuff. The Godfather, D'Lo Brown and the Headbangers versus the Dudley Boys and the Acolytes. The Dudley Boys were like brand new. They were brand new to the company by this point. So they came in obviously as heels, which is what they were basically, you know, leaving ECW. Gives a crap. But
be nice.
Please, not on this show are we going to shill out for ECW.
When we get Dean on, we will.
Oh God, the guy who complains about Mud Show Wrestling, he will come on here and defend New Jack and Sabu.
He's not going to defend New Jack or Sabu, but he'll defend Shane Douglas to the death, and you know it.
He will defend Shane Douglas. He's the only one left. So we get to the end here. The survivors are the Godfather and D'Lo Brown. This match went just about almost 10 minutes, a little over 9.5. I thought it was okay. Post-match, it's like, you know, Hogan must pose, but the Godfather, you must dance with the hose, right?
Godfather must hose.
So you had referee Tim White dancing with them because, you know, old white dudes dancing is always good comedy. So there were some dead parts in the match. But I also felt like, I mean, since it's the very first match, and like you and I had talked about 99-2000, everybody was over, even as a heel or a babyface, everyone got a crowd reaction in 1999. I felt like, George, the crowd kind of made this match better than it was because, man, they were hot for this.
Oh, yeah. Especially when Mosh and Thrasher came out, basically dressed as
Yep.
pimps, which, yeah, that ain't happening in 2023, brother. And you know it.
It is
They came out,
not.
they came out with the afros. It's like, that's cultural appropriation now. In
Yeah,
1999, it was just good, clean comedy. And
absolutely.
I mean, like the story in this too was, I mean, like, the Dudley Boys debuted, and I think they had an altercation with Teddy Long when Teddy Long was still a referee, and that's when like the acolytes like came to their defense. You know, like Farouk and Teddy Long go all the way back. So so there was tension between both of those teams of the acolytes and the Dudleys. So it was only natural that, of course, two of them would start fighting and then fight all the way at the back. But yeah,
Yeah.
everybody. Also, what was this theme that the acolytes had? Because this
Dude,
wasn't
I don't know.
it wasn't their normal like APA
No.
theme, which they used in '99. So
I
was
know.
thrown off, and it wasn't the Ministry music. So
Mm-mm.
ugh,
I'm
whatever.
guessing someone pressed the wrong button. I don't
Yeah.
know. There was and then after this was a video package about the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, who was making his debut here. And of course, as always in his videos, Angle bragged about all of his success. But here we go with his first televised match: Kurt Angle versus the Sean Stasiak.
Meat.
Stasiak got no reaction, of course. Angle was announced as the most celebrated real athlete in WWF history. I'm sure that got him some heat. Kurt Angle, of course, gets the win by pinfall at 6 minutes. I thought it was basic. It was a way to get Kurt Angle in front of a live audience in a big pay-per-view setting. The promo by Angle mid-match I thought was hilarious because
I forgot he did that.
Yeah, I did too. And I'm like, oh, this is good because you didn't see that like rarely ever in this era. You would think, which is probably what WWF thought when they were running the vignettes and bringing them in, like, this guy's going to be a great babyface. And then he starts cutting these promos and you're realizing, my God, he sounds like a pretentious a-hole. He's going to be a great heel. So, it was so smart of the WWF to pivot and to book him as a heel because I felt like Kurt Angle as a heel thrived. And I mean, brilliance atop of brilliance as a heel. What did you think of the debut here of Angle and the fact that he's now being billed as a heel or booked as a heel, not billed?
Oh, I mean, it was fantastic. I mean,
yeah.
This early because it was the heel who thinks he's a babyface.
Yeah,
like it was so simple, and it was played off so perfectly by Kurt. I was gonna make a comment here, like we never saw this guy ever again, but we're literally touting him as huge. I'm like, well, I can't make that comment now.
Yeah, you can't. It's
but
funny.
they even tried to boost Stasiak a little bit too. They're like, oh, he's the son of WWF legend Stan Stasiak, and then they even showed like a clip from Stan Stasiak doing the heart punch back in the 70s. So they even tried to get him up a little bit. Meanwhile, everyone who's been watching looks at him, we're like, wasn't this guy meat 2 months ago?
Like, how dare you? You are not going to come on this show and disgrace a good GD name of meat.
Keep that up, and we're going to do New Blood Rising next.
Never. I can't believe I allowed Dean to even pick that. I actually should punch myself in the balls for that. Next match here, Survivor Series elimination match, back-to-back here. Val Venus, Mark Henry, Gangrel, and Steve Blackman. God, which one of these? All of them are not like the other.
What a team.
That's like one of those things where for a fact someone in the back was like, all right, we got a dartboard here, pal. Just here's the baby faces. Just start throwing the darts and we're going to put them together.
This had all the makings of a new generation era Survivor Series tag team.
It really did.
The only thing missing was Marty Jannetty and Ludwig Borga.
Accurate. So funny. All right, so this was okay. I mean, Bulldog, they're going up against the British Bulldog and the Mean Street Posse, which is Rodney, Pete Gas, and Joey Abs. Val was probably the biggest babyface at this time in terms of popularity, right? And I would say at this point in time, Bulldog was, a mid-card heel. Bulldog was the biggest name of the entire match, clearly. At the time, Bulldog was a European champ, and boy, did he just, whoever he had putting tan on him, he way too much tan.
All of it.
But, pardon me, I'll say that Bulldog was able to get a few cycles in. It's because he looked jacked in this one. What was your thoughts on this one? We get to the end, and Val Venus and Mark Henry are the survivors. I actually thought it was significantly less impressive than the opening match. What was your thoughts?
It wasn't good.
It wasn't the best.
At one point, Bulldog went to the opposite corner to tag out, and then realized he was in the wrong corner, and then ran back across the ring. I'm like, we're just gonna do that. Fine.
See what happened was
all right. Yeah, basically. and then whenever a member of the Main Street Posse came in the ring, they were in the ring for 2 minutes and then got pinned and was just taken out of there.
Yeah.
And listen to Jerry Lawler try to hype them up. It's like, oh, this Pete Gas, he gets better every time he's in the ring. I'm like, well, that's a bold-faced lie.
Absolutely.
More like Pete Ass, maybe.
Oh, look at that. That's a t-shirt. So the next match we're not going to really talk about because it was what it was. For the interest of time, we're going to move on from it. But it was Deborah, Fabulous Moolah, Mae Young, and Tori versus Ivory, Jackie, Terry Reynolds, and Luna. Whatever. We all know who won.
Just fucking bad.
Yeah. Dean, George sent me a really vulgar text message after watching this. However, I did laugh at it. But we get to the back here after this match is over. X-Pac is being interviewed by what seems to be like a fresh, brand new Lillian Garcia in the company here. Mm-hmm. X-Pac talked about how he carried Kane for months and that he's better than him. X-Pac said he can whip Kane's ass while not noting that Kane was impotent. This was
it's not 1999 without a dick joke.
Yeah. I thought it was a very uncomfortable promo because when I think of guys that can talk, I will never think of Sean Waltman. And that's not against him because inside the ropes, X-Pac or Sean Waltman was amazing. A spectacular worker inside the squared circle, but I'm not sure I wanted to hear him talk at this point in time.
That wasn't his, that was not his strong suit. But then they also showed an interview with Kane and Tori
earlier that night. Yeah.
And then she made the comment like, X-Pac's the one with the little hose. I'm like, oh, Jesus, here we go.
Yeah. You guys can Google that if you want to know the answer. So
I don't know who wants to know the answer.
I know. So here we are, X-Pac versus Kane. These guys are former tag team partners who I loved. I loved X-Pac and Kane as tag team partners. X-Pac was a heel, obviously part of that DX faction. They were heels at the time, and Kane was a babyface, of course. The winner by disqualification at just 4 minutes was Kane. You had the 3 DX guys coming out here, which was obviously, Road Dogg comes out with Badass Billy Gunn.
No,
and not Badass, but I'm sorry,
it was him and Triple H.
Him and Triple H.
Billy Gunn wasn't there yet.
Right. Billy Gunn was there. I'm sorry. So he and Triple H get into the ring, and he hits Kane over the head with the title. That led to the DQ. Tori bounced her way around the ring. She turned, she went into the ring. She touched X-Pac, and X-Pac nails her with a spin kick to knock her down. Kane got back up, and then of course Triple H and X-Pac run off. AMT personnel went into the ring because I guess Tori died from a spinning heel kick from X-Pac. But it was what it was. I guess it was a match for the storyline. They did continue the rivalry with Tori eventually turning heel on Kane by aligning herself with X-Pac. What was your thoughts on this, man? Too short, not a logical match to put to begin with. What was your thoughts there? They worked much better as a tag team because they had zero chemistry up against each other.
They could have put this on Heat.
Yeah.
This was a Heat match. It's
not in a great sense of the term.
Only 4 minutes. It didn't do anything. It barely furthered the story.
Yeah, I agree. We get to The Rock being interviewed by Michael Cole. He barely gets a chance to even say a word until Triple H shows up, and immediately they start throwing hands, and then refs come around to try to break it up. And then that was it for that segment. So here we go. We get to a 1-on-4 Survivor Series elimination match. This was something. Big Show versus Big Boss Man, Prince Albert, Mideon, and Viscera. But however, this was at a time, and I shouldn't be laughing at this, but we often joke about this time, George, Dean, and I. Boss Man at the time was mocking Big Show for mourning the death of his father. So,
what a great heel.
It's like the scene at the cemetery with Big Boss Man stealing the casket of Big Show's dad. It's just classic. And then we find out later on that there was a real funeral going on while they were doing this.
Yes.
So I'm just like, this is so good, yet so terrible at once.
Michael Hayes knew what he was doing.
He really did. That was a bad street production, I'm sure.
The funny thing was, it was like Boss Man showed up not like a regular cop car, but the fucking Blues Brothers car with a giant
absolutely
like megaphone on top. And I'm sitting there like, I remember seeing it before. I'm like, that's a weird way of having a megaphone on your car. And then it wasn't until years later, and I'm like, oh yeah, he was Big Bubba in WCW, which was basically just him in a suit, like he was one of the Blues Brothers. So it sort of fit if you knew if you know his history, but I still find it hilarious to this day.
Yeah. It's just, it was the one and only time I had a lot of interest in the Big Show.
I can't wait till it happens in AEW with Paul White.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll wait. So obviously we get to this match. The Big Show was supposed to have partners, but he beat the piss out of Kaientai, the Blue Meanie, earlier in the show.
Which was kind of uncomfortable because Blue Meanie sitting there the whole time yelling, "We're on your side."
So good. It's so terrible again. It's clear, now 24 years later, we know why this match was kept incredibly short, as in the match is over in a minute and a half. So, Big Show's the only survivor. It was definitely a chance to put the Big Show over, especially knowing where he was going to be in like an hour. So, why not make him look as strong as possible going into that main event where he's going to have to be in the main event here for the title. And here we go.
We always talk a little bit of trash about Big Show. Often we talk trash about Big Show.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he was 500 pounds here. I think he was a little lighter than the 500 because he was looking.
No, he was probably 420 here.
And he was moving around the ring better here than I remembered him in like years to come.
Yeah, for sure. Like this was his
he's
peak.
Running the ropes, and it's like I don't remember him having this kind of speed, but
Yeah, I agree. This was as good as he was when he first came into WCW, when he moved like a 260 pounder. Like he was so agile in WCW back in that time. But yeah, here we go, man. This is where the wrestling world was shook. And just turned upside down. Steve Austin's getting interviewed by Kevin Kelly. Triple H shows up to attack him with a few, right hands. Triple H spits liquid, so I guess water in his face.
I think it was beer, actually.
It was a beer, which is weird coming from Triple H.
He's adding insult to injury, so. That's
true. Then they have a shot of Austin in the parking garage looking for somebody, and then lights turn on, and here comes this Black Crown Vic driving through a gate and just running the bleep over Steve Austin. Austin's, well, his stunt double is bumping on top of the car, rolling right off. JR is having an aneurysm on commentary. And Austin is just laid out on cement when the camera pans back. It just seems so real because you see Vince McMahon running in the backstage area. And, you know, when he gets into the parking lot, he's calling for help with Stephanie. Shane Test is there. You know, Vince is freaking out, like screaming at security. Jim Ross leaves the booth or the commentary table, runs in the back. You know, Vince yelled at Triple H about what he did. Triple H said he's not to blame for it, that he's done a lot of things and all that, but he's definitely not to blame for this. And he refuses to take blame for it. Vince is screaming, saying he's going to, Hunter's going to pay for this. Vince was there to help with Austin because at this point in the storyline, like we said earlier, Vince McMahon is a babyface. Vince told someone to go get his car so he can go to the medical facility with Stone Cold.
No, they called it a hospital.
I know, but I just wanted to say medical facility. Austin gets loaded into the ambulance, and he's gone. Like, dude, this was an angle that was done to write Steve Austin out of storylines for 11 months, where he would go off and get major neck fusion surgery after Owen Hart spiked Steve Austin in SummerSlam of 97. What a loss, dude. What a loss for the company. If you're the WWF, man, you've got to be thinking, are we going to be able to carry on without the golden goose, like the man? Of course, looking back, you go, yeah, look at the roster. I mean, look at them. Taker, Triple H was coming to his own. The Rock is already a solid number 2, babyface. Are they going to be, in 1999, you're thinking, how are you going to survive? Obviously, you can't imagine a WWF without Austin being around every week. I mean, you look back, they did just fine. But, dude, like at the time in 99, George, like Austin's down and out. Like, what's going on?
I mean, Vince only filed in the hospital because he's trying to protect his investment.
I mean, yes.
I mean, hey, you want to talk some? Actually, there's a couple things I want to mention. First things first is the camera crew and the production.
Yeah,
because it was like I went back and I rewatched it, and I'm like, oh, like when they zoomed in on the car, it's like that's where they switched Austin with the stunt double, and then the car driving off. Like it was almost seamless.
Yeah,
how they did it. It's like, and as I told you when I was watching it, I was like, if this happens now, there's 100 different videos going out showing the switch and people screaming, "Oh, look how fake it is!" It's like, yeah, because they're actually going to run somebody over with a friggin' car.
Correct. Of course they are. It's real.
Smooth-brained individuals.
No.
So the credit to the camera team, and you want to talk long-term storytelling. I remember when Austin came back and Stephanie's like, "Hey, I've got a present for you. It's the hat that you wore the night that you got run over. Like I kept it for you." When you watch the clip of them backstage, Stephanie is holding the hat the entire time.
Yeah, it's just
long-term storytelling.
Phenomenal storytelling. It really is. That's like stuff that gets lost today. And
I wonder if that's something where they just noticed that she was holding the hat the entire time, and they're like, what is she doing? And then they're like, wait, this is great. Just have her give him the hat back.
Oh, exactly. Ideal. So, this was what it was. Oh, thank you. Austin's their top guy. It's a huge loss for the WWF because the roster was just so good that they did have an amazing 2000. I mean, I've been on record, and we'll hear it more here when I talk about how 2000 WWF to me was their best year, and that was without Steve Austin. I think 2000 and 2001 was so good. Because even you go back to Survivor Series 2000, let's not forget the banger that Triple H had with Steve Austin a year later. Like, we'll definitely talk about that Survivor Series at some point as well. You know, and then later on we'll talk about how I think WWF really missed the boat by having Rikishi be the guy that ran him over. I thought that was dumb. I thought it was bad placement, but that's for next year, probably. We get back to ringside. Jerry Lawler notes that he's out there by himself because we just saw JR was in the back just for a minute to go check on Steve Austin, who just got ran over by a car. So let's go to the next match, which was something. Intercontinental Championship, Chyna versus Chris Jericho. Chyna gets the win at 13 minutes and 30 seconds with probably the ugliest finish I've seen in a long time. But credit to Jericho for taking this at the time. What was your thoughts on this, man? The crowd liked it, I'll tell you that.
The crowd liked it. I mean, the crowd was hot for Jericho and they were hot for Chyna. So the crowd was pumped. The crowd was 100% pumped for this match. I mean, I remember reading in Jericho's book that he did not like this match, because it was the whole thing of like how like Chyna was protected, like you couldn't hit her too hard, but then she would say,
Right.
you know, hey, like actually give me the shots. And then I know Jericho would say something like, you know, he would give her the like a stiff shot, and then Vince would be all over him, like how dare you, pal?
Yeah,
For doing that.
you're right.
So it was, and yeah, she did the pedigree. A pedigree off the top rope could have looked really cool if she didn't land on her friggin' feet.
Yeah, that wasn't the best.
So
but...
I realized something as I was watching this match. Specifically the entrances. I mean, Jericho's entrances, it's Jericho. It's always going to be good. And then Chyna came in. I forgot the cat or Miss Kitty was with her. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him. And then I'm like, is this the precursor to Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio?
Oh, God. Yeah,
I mean, all we need is for Rhea to come out with a shirt that says Master and Dominic with a shirt that says Slave.
Oh dear God! I don't know if we'll see that, but I wouldn't mind it. That's for sure. The finish,
if they're not doing it, if they're not pitching it there, then the Triple H ain't doing his job.
Yeah. I will say though, you could tell that the crowd wasn't a fan as we got through the match. Wasn't a fan of this entire program because Chris Jericho is the heel here, and the crowd completely almost during the match turns on Chyna and starts cheering for Chris Jericho. So that tells you something as well.
It was only going to get worse.
I know.
With this program. So
yeah, I know. Oh, I know. There's a backstage segment with Triple H and X-Pac asking Shane McMahon where Vince was. Shane said Vince was at the hospital with Austin. Hunter asked Shane if it's just him and Rock now instead of the triple threat. Shane said he doesn't know what they're going to do yet. I really wish they would have just kept it at Rock and Triple H. That would have been tremendous.
You're going to get that all in 2000.
That's true. That's a good point. But I wanted it here, damn it. Survivor Series. I know. Survivor Series elimination match. Too Cool and the Hollies, Hardcore and Crash versus Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys. Holy cow. Talk about, just awesome. Like Edge and Christian, the Hardys were baby faces here. Edge and Christian became heels in the early 2000s or so. So, Too Cool were heels, even though they became mega baby faces very shortly after this pay-per-view. This was not bad. I enjoyed the heck out of this. Hardcore Holly ends up being the survivor at the end. I thought the crowd just did not appreciate this match enough because I enjoyed it. What did you think?
Lots of star power and Grandmaster Sexay. So, I mean, I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, yeah, this. I mean, and there were 4 legit tag teams. Hardcore and Crash were our former tag team champions at this point. Too Cool would eventually get the titles for a little bit. Edge and Christian and the Hardys.
Yeah.
It's written in history the many times that they've swapped the belts.
Yeah. Yep.
But it was a really fun match to watch. And I still love when Scotty does that DDT off the top rope. Oh my God.
Oh, that was so good. Scotty 2 Hotty to me will forever be one of the most underrated in-ring talents. Scott Taylor was amazing. Whenever I watch Too Cool and I watch him, man, he was the star. He was the star of that group. I mean, you can even ask JR because he'll tell you everything bad about Grandmaster Sexay in the middle of a match.
He was,
So,
oh man, JR was so unhinged. Everything that Brian Christopher did, JR was just insulting it. And it was clearly just to get a rise out of the king. But it's just like, because he put the goggles on. He's like, look at this idiot. Who puts goggles on in the middle of a match? That's a blithering idiot is what that is. He's like, oh, maybe he should go get his goggles again.
oh my gosh, it was
He's like,
so
oh,
good.
why don't you have a dance break again?
He really hammered home how much he was not a fan of Brian Christopher at the time. So
Don't
we
worry,
get
nobody was. Too Cool
here
didn't
we
become
are.
faces until they teamed up with Rikishi, and Rikishi was going to debut the next night on Raw.
Correct. Yep. Good callback there. Way to go. Nice work
Well,
letting everybody know what happened the night later. Here we go. The final match before the main event. The New Age Outlaws versus Mankind and Al Snow. I just felt like at this point, the crowd was just kind of dead, like kind of shocked at what they just witnessed with Austin. So again, I just felt like the crowd was a little down for this. Even with the New Age Outlaws doing their full entrance, the crowd just wasn't as into it. But the New Age Outlaws got the win at 14 minutes. I thought it was just too long. It was a good match, man, but man, it was about 3 to 4 minutes too long. What says you?
I mean, did that car hit Austin or did it hit the crowd? Because
yes, we'll go with yes.
As soon as the car hit Austin, the crowd lost all interest in anything that followed, which is disappointing for Jericho. It's like, oh, I have to follow that. The Mankind is my least favorite of Mick Foley's personas. I
agree.
I tried. I try to like. I mean, yeah, he's goofy and he's fun, but he's not as fun as Dude Love. Man, Dude Love was fun.
Dude Love was a lot of fun. I really
Jack,
enjoyed Dude Love.
It's Cactus Jack.
Yeah, of course. It's got to be Cactus,
I mean, that's
right?
the closest to Mick Foley you're actually going to get. So it's
but
Mankind was just like I didn't know at 99 what he was really doing anymore. Because he wasn't doing the boiler room shit, and he wasn't.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just.
I think he even thought like, "What am I doing? He was like almost like a tweener." Yeah. I agree with that. I'll ask you before we get to the main event here. Would you have handled the Austin car scene differently? Like, would you have put it in a different part of the show?
Maybe on Sunday Night Heat.
Maybe in the middle of the title match, he is forced to leave the ring, and it happens in the middle, like it happens while The Rock and Triple H are still in the ring, or they fight in the back.
Maybe he's Triple H and The Rock have already made their entrances and are waiting for Austin, then Austin gets jumped by DX in the back, and then he starts chasing him out, and then he starts chasing him, and then you cut to your car thing. But a little harder to do that if your stunt guy isn't built like Steve Austin.
That's a good point too. That's a great point. So maybe they did
because he's got to be in the ring attire, so it's easier to get him in street attire. So I figure if you do it on Sunday Night Heat, then you can spend the entire pay-per-view discussing what's going on.
That's a good point. So then they were kind of between a rock and a hard place, no pun intended. They had to really do it right there at the spot that they did it, because you're right, the stunt double, looks a lot more like Steve Austin when he's wearing a bunch of clothes. Yeah. So you're right, that fits. All right, so let's get to this main event here. As it ended up, Rikishi, obviously, we find out later on, was the guy driving the car. I remember a time when Billy Gunn was rumored for that. For that, I remember reading some sheets back then saying Billy Gunn was a possibility. I was like, God, that would have been bad too.
Yeah, because
But
I mean, he was the only member of DX who wasn't there, and then they even talked about it like during the New Age Outlaws entrance. We're like, hey, Billy Gunn wasn't there, and then King kept ripping into JR. It's like you don't even care about Austin, do you?
I don't. So The Rock makes his entrance for the match. I mean, that woke the crowd right back up as soon as The Rock's music hit. Earl Hebner's the referee. Triple H is the WWF World Champion. He makes his entrance to mega boos at this point, which was, the way it should be. And then the third man in the match, Big Show, to a literal
BS.
no reaction from the crowd. Like, Triple H is trying to sell it, making angry faces to oh my gosh, it's the worst thing that could have happened.
He's not
Big
wrong.
Show. Yeah, I know, right? Especially those of us watching who paid for it. At least Triple H was getting paid for this. The Big Show spent the first year in the WWF as a heel. So I guess at this point they're trying to make him. You think at this point they're trying to make him a babyface or no? Or they're hoping maybe.
Well, because they did that whole thing where he was tagging with Undertaker for a minute, and then Taker got hurt, so they had to do something with him.
That's a good point. So the match wasn't great. So to me, the crowd was kind of out of it until on the outside, The Rock grabbed the ring bell, hit the Big Show in the head, and then Hunter and Rock double team Show with a suplex through the Spanish announce table. That kind of, to me, really woke the crowd up because they were just dead before that. And then you have, Rock and Triple H brawling into the crowd. But in the last couple minutes, they got back into the ring area. And then you get to the very end here. Just chaos ensues. Like, you would think it was just going to be a schmoz finish, but no. At the end,
that damn DX,
that dang DX,
as Jim Ross was calling him at that time.
Yeah, I mean, this was tough, man. Show has an elbow drop on Triple H, then Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, and X-Pac get into the ring to beat up the Big Show and The Rock. Vince McMahon walks down the aisle. He's back from the hospital in great time to a massive babyface ovation. Big Show then nails a choke slam on Billy Gunn. Vince hits Triple H with a title shot to the head. And then Big Show hits a choke slam on Triple H, and Vince McMahon counts the pin. You're a winner and new champion. Screw you, George, for picking this. Big Show. I have to announce Big Show as the new world champion right now.
And this is the third Survivor Series in a row where Vince McMahon was directly responsible for the outcome of the championship match.
Yep. He is Mr. Survivor Series.
Survivor Series screw job. The third one in a row. It seemed to me for the longest time Survivor Series kept having screw jobs.
Yeah, you're right.
Because even in like 2000, there was one like with Angle with the whole schmaz with his brother that looked like him, and then 2001 when Angle turned on Team Alliance. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Right. So you have JR yelling about how Vince screwed Triple H out of the title. I'm sure JR at this time was happy about that. But he's missing his rattlesnake, obviously. What did you think of the match?
It wasn't good. I've seen better triple threat matches on a random Friday night.
Yeah.
Anywhere. Not even on SmackDown, just at like the Armory in Philly back in 2004 or something. Like it was just, it wasn't good. And obviously it was kind of just thrown together. They probably didn't have as much time to build up for it because they knew Austin was going on. Like, all right, well, we got to do something. So let's just do this. I don't know if I liked it or if I hated when Vince came in the ring and he first swung the title at Triple H. He ducked, turned around, Big Show was there. And it's like there was a misstep. It's like something else was supposed to happen. Like someone missed their mark. I think Big Show was supposed to hit Triple H, and he was supposed to turn back into Vince, and Vince was then going to clock him with the belt. I think that just because of body language, that's what looks like it was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But Big Show forgot. Shocking. Because it was like, why would you miss the title shot and then immediately hit it that time? It's like, there were way too many miscues for a pay-per-view. Not just this match, throughout the entire pay-per-view. There was a lot of just missed spots, miscues that didn't look good.
I agree. I will say, I guess the goal of this show was to make Big Show look as strong and as unbeatable as possible.
And he never looked that way again.
And this was the peak for, us looking at the Big Show as that dominant figure.
Let me ask you this, Chris.
Sure.
Obviously, Big Show is not your pick, and he's not my pick. But
Right.
if you had to pick somebody else to be the third man in this match, who do you pick? Who do you put in that spot?
Again, I told you, I would have just kept it as Rock versus Triple H. But if I had to pick somebody else, I don't know, Shane McMahon.
I was thinking about it, and to me, it only seemed logical because you're short on main event talent. Taker's gone, Austin's out. You need someone who's got main event credentials, and being the storylines and everything going on, Kane would have been my pick.
So as soon as you asked me the question, I wanted to say Kane, but then I'm like, oh, they just had him he was only in a 4-minute match. Yeah, it could have made sense.
DX is going to interfere regardless.
Which is why I thought Shane could have worked, because then it's like, okay, well, he's out there to avenge Steve Austin and what happened to that with the McMahon family. Just throw him in there to take a bunch of bumps and get to the end. But when you talk about it,
if you throw Shane in there, then you have to change the outcome of the match. Either Triple H or Rock ends up winning that match.
Right. But it's not the Big Show. It's so. So
there would have been nothing wrong with having Kane hold that belt for a little bit.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think it would have been a good idea. I think Kane would have been a perfect pick. You're right. I think that's true. So yeah, good pick by you to have Kane there.
I would say Mankind, but he just did a 14-minute tag team match.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be him. Although it wouldn't have shocked me if it was.
It would have been Cactus Jack.
Oh, yeah. So, they finish the night. You hear Lawler make the quote, "That's the most unpredictable Survivor Series ever." Definitely, yes. No one watching the show expected they were going to be 11 months without Steve Austin.
Yeah.
So yeah. Final thoughts here on this show, man. I think this show left a very big sour taste in my mouth when I got done. Again, when you said 1999, I'm thinking, awesome. We're right in smack dab in the middle of the Attitude Era. Survivor Series at this time was a pretty good pay-per-view. I'm really excited for this. And then I got to the end of it, and I'm like, man, this one just doesn't sit right with me. I just didn't like it. What says you?
I picked it because it was one of the final Survivor Series we got that had a lot of Survivor Series matches. I was like, you know what?
Yes.
Let's just enjoy the matches for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
They were all bad. Don't get me wrong. But we didn't see this again I can't even say for a long time. We just didn't see it again. Now you get one Survivor Series match, a pay-per-view, and that's pretty much how that rolls.
Yeah.
But I don't give this a high pay. I don't give this high rating. I also want to do it because it was Kurt Angle's debut. I was like, we could talk about Kurt Angle's debut. I didn't realize his debut match was only 6 minutes long.
Yeah, I know.
Generic as fuck.
Yeah.
But it was there. And I think if I'm giving it a rating out of 10, I'm not going higher than 4. And I'm being generous with that 4.
I think you're being very generous with that 4, to be honest. And you're already leaving this crowd, this visual crowd that's going to be watching us from now on with a bad taste in their mouth. Like, look at that. Look at Shillington giving a 4, which deserves a 2. How dare you?
Excuse me.
um,
Most of that 4 is because Kurt Angle in the middle of the match cut a promo.
that's I will agree to that. That's good.
But
I also what also hurt my rating on this also was the crowd sucked. Like there was a good energy in the beginning, but even before the Austin match, I'm just like, Detroit's usually at the Joe Louis Arena. From what I remember watching events there, was a really good crowd, a really good wrestling town. Not tonight, it wasn't.
I think they underestimated Austin's impact
Absolutely
and how
agree.
they were going to react with him not being there.
Yeah,
They could have had him hit by the car and then not leave. Like he could have just been like, oh,
true.
he's still here. He's just in the back. He's going to try to come out, but then it's like, oh, can't send him out. Send him. There's Kane. Send him out. They could or anybody. If he was still there in the arena and people could, and they would, just cut the camera to the back a couple times, just see him sitting there, just so they can get him on the screen, so people can see him and know that he's physically there. And I'll tell you the one thing about this pay-per-view that pisses me off more than anything in the world, and it's not Big Show winning the title, it's the fact that we never again got Stone Cold, Triple H, and The Rock in a triple threat match.
I know. We were robbed of something so
never
pure.
Got that again. And it would have been poetry.
It would have been. It would have been perfect. Of course it would have been perfect, which is why we didn't get it. So I'm gonna go with a 3. Like I'm gonna have, that's the best I can do. I mean, I think the best match of the night was Too Cool and the Hollies versus Edge and Christian and the Hardys. It was below average show at best. The absence of Austin, like you said, like we felt that by the end of the night. It killed the crowd. We all wanted Austin, but we got the friggin' Big Show instead. So not a great or fair trade-off. I definitely would have asked for a refund if I was in the crowd. And I thought the women's match was just pure embarrassment to the product.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
I so bad want to tell people what I text you, but I can't.
No, yeah, we cannot. Yeah. So I'm going to give it a 3, and that's Survivor Series 1999, ladies and gentlemen. A far cry from the Survivor Series that we covered last week, which was 1996, which was a great show, a really good show. This was just a stinker. So we're going to jump ahead 8 years next week when we cover Survivor Series from 2007. I actually thought this was a really good show, and kind of let me take everybody back to this to kind of give everybody an idea of what we're going to be talking about. CM Punk was on that match, on that card. Team Triple H, which was Triple H, Jeff Hardy, Kane, and Rey Mysterio against Umaga, Big Daddy V, Finley, Mr. Kennedy, and MVP. And then you had Randy Orton versus Shawn Michaels, a singles match for the WWE Championship, which had the stipulation of if Michaels used the Sweet Chin music, he would be disqualified and would not get another title shot during Orton's reign. If Orton got himself disqualified, he would have lost the title to Michaels. And the main event of this show was Batista versus The Undertaker, a Hell in a Cell match for the World Heavyweight Championship. So can't wait to cover this next week. What are you looking forward to Survivor Series 07, George?
Oh, yeah. You know me. I'm always looking forward to a good Ruthless Aggression era pay-per-view.
That's my favorite era. So for those of you, I think it's both of our favorite eras, correct? I think you, me, and Dean love Ruthless Aggression era the best. So
I do hold that soft spot for the Attitude.
Of course,
because everybody forgets about the Ruthless Aggression era. It's always like the Attitude era, and then it's today. It's like now, like really, even in Ruthless Aggression, you had solid storylines, but you had better matches, and you had a much better mid card.
I agree, wholeheartedly agree.
That was just good quality entertainment, pal.
You won't ever hear me disagree about that. So yeah, we're super excited to cover some Ruthless Aggression era stuff beginning next week. We have someone making a comment here, of course.
Of course.
So thank you to Dean, who
Good
maybe will join us next week since he is a big fan of the Ruthless Aggression era. So maybe we'll get him on next week for Survivor Series 2007.
Hey, Chris, this just in. Apparently tomorrow, CM Punk has an interview with Jack Tunney. So we'll see if he gets signed by the company. You know, Jack Tunney's got a lot of pull these days, apparently.
Jack Tunney's dead.
Are you sure?
I mean, yes, he's been dead for 19 years, but we'll see how that goes. So we'll see. All right, guys. So
if Jack Tunney was still in charge, Austin wouldn't have got run over. I'm just saying.
That's a good point. So thank you to everybody who tuned in. Looking forward to doing this. This was a little bit longer this week because we had to do quite a bit of stuff and introduce ourselves. The shows will not be this long in the future. Just to give an FYI, you'll probably cut about 30 minutes of that because we talked about two shows, Crown Jewel and Raw, whereas we won't talk that much next week before getting into Survivor Series.
We're still gonna talk about Crown Jewel, though.
Yes, exactly. All right, so this has been the Hot Tag Wrestling Show, episode 1 on YouTube. However, this is, I think, if you guys have been listening for a few years, audio, either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts, this is our 17th episode. So we've been around for a while. Tell your friends, tell your family. Head over to the Hot Tag Podcast on Instagram. You can find us on YouTube as well. Just type in the Hot Tag Podcast. You'll find us there. So yeah, a lot of fun things to come. Super excited for all that. George, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Chris, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. All right, so for George Rogers, I'm Christy Francesco, and we'll catch you guys down the road. Have a great rest of your week and weekend, and we'll see you guys here next week. See ya. Bye-bye.